All right, why don't we start for Friday here? So again, Friday's kind of our review day, our exercise day. You know now how to use array lists. The goal today is really to get you to exercise more with array lists, practice some more examples of it, make sure we've got it clear in our heads. And again, if it's not clear in your head, doing some exercises will help put it in place. So we have a couple options. We have the Yahtzee activity. If you're not done with that, you can hopefully, then remember you have to post one of your explanations to the Yahtzee area here. We have some practice problems here, and then we have the assignment for this. I think I'm going to walk through a couple of the practice problems with you, and then you work on some, and then in about half hour we'll look a little bit at the assignment here. Let's jump back to Yahtzee just real quick. So in the discussion area, hopefully you're posting discussions for how to do different things here. And I just want to highlight an example. So someone's supposed to post their way of doing something, and then your reply, besides your post, you should also reply and try to optimize a solution out here. So here's an example that's actually slightly tweaked from a version that's posted out there of how to calculate Yahtzee. So let's see if we can understand this. So we assume you don't have Yahtzee. We set score to 0. And then we're going to go through all the dice, 1 to 6. And we're going to count how many of each dice of that value we have. So we set count to 0. We then loop through all the die here in the dice. We check if the die is equal to the number. So like we'll start with 1. Do we have a 1? And we add that. Do we have a 1? We count how many 1s we have. We check if that count is greater than or equal to 5. And if so, you get a Yahtzee and get a score of 50. And then we loop through and we count the number of how many 2s and see if we have more than 5 2s and see if we have more than 5 3s. So this should actually work here. We can actually try it out and test it out for this. Now, one of the challenges for testing out this is that it's hard to roll Yahtzee when you're playing the game. So you can actually, of course, cheat here if you want to test things out. There's a method way down here called init, which initializes the dice. And it normally sets them to random values. I commented out and I'm just rolling all 6s in my example here. So I'm just setting them all, having it roll all 6s. And again, you can actually delete this for loop and you can just add whatever numbers you want if you want to try to roll a straight or something like that. So again, this helps when I'm testing. So now when I run this, I go, wow, I got all 6s. I got Yahtzee. And I don't want to re-roll any of those. And I want to score that as a Yahtzee, 12. So it should show that I've got a Yahtzee and I've got 50 points there. So that works here. But again, is there a better way of doing this Yahtzee? So one thing is it's checking how many 1s and how many 2s. And this number is always that. We don't actually have to check that. If the first number, whatever the first number is, I can just check that. So I can actually get rid of this loop and just say, I'm going to just set number equal to dice dot get 0 to get the first die. And then I can just count how many times we have that first die. So that is one optimization. So I can get rid of one whole for loop here. I'm going to set number equal to the first die. I'm going to set count, and I'm going to count how many times that first die is there. And then if it's greater than or equal to 5, give it 50. So that's one thing. Another thing I can look at is this code looks very familiar, counting stuff. In fact, there's a utility down here, count values, which is almost that exact same code that counts the values of a given, give it some value. And I can do that. So I'm going to count the values. I can actually replace this whole loop here, this whole loop. I can just say count equals count value, and I count in dice, I'm going to look for the number that I've selected and count how many times that number is. And then again, if that count is greater, I can actually set this equal. If that count is equal to 5, then I get a score of 50. So this is a shorter version of that code. It doesn't actually have any loops. I just grab the first dice value. I then count that, how many times that appears, and I check if that count is at 5, and if so, I return 50. So there's a shorter version of that. So again, remember when you're doing this, you can use these. There's a count, and there's also a sum methods here. Both of them return integers. One counts and one sums up the dice. So, and then you're posting it. I know you can just paste your code in there, but I have had a couple students ask, is there a way to make the code a little prettier there? So I just posted a, let's see, where is it? Here, posting pretty code here. So there's two ways to post pretty code. Once, if you post the code in here for this, well, this week, let me just do a reply. So if I take this code, let's say I take this code here and I post it in here, it's not going to format it very well, but if I highlight that code and change it to code and block code, it'll set up a nice font and indent it a little bit for it. And so that's what this is here. Now, if you want it even prettier like this, there's a website that I use a lot called Highlight Me. And you can post any code in here in this code block. You can hit highlight. You can change the look, and it'll give you a preview of it. It'll give you all this HTML. And then here in our editor, you can actually click on this little link here, and that'll show you the HTML idea. And we can post in our code there. And that'll set up your code kind of like this for it. So again, you can do either of those ways. And again, it doesn't really matter, but some people have been just asking, is there, what's the best way to post code? So, okay. I'd recommend you work on a discussion or practice problems if you haven't, if you're done with Yahtzee. The practice problems this week, the practice problems this week are just the Unit 10 ones that use arrays, but using array lists. So I'm just going to go through a couple of those real quick. The first one is this heart rate one. And there's a solution here using arrays. So I'm going to grab that solution. And I'm going to go over here, and I'm just going to paste that in here. So this should work with arrays. Again, this assumes we're exercising. You enter your age. And so again, now it's winter time. I've been going to the gym a couple times a week and try to keep my heart rate up. So if I'm just walking around the gym, my heart rate might be like 80 or 90. And then when I start exercising on like the stationary bikes, I try to get my heart rate up to about 130, 135 there, and then bring it back down to about 105, and then maybe up again. And this will show the different zones it goes into as it goes from one value to another, kind of, because again, it's showing these zones. So again, I like to, when I exercise, get up to a higher zone and back and up again when I do these interval trainings. So again, the code works, but it uses an array. We're going to change it to an array list here. So I'm just going to go through, enter your age, read in this, calculate the maximum heart rate. That's for exercise calculations. And now how many heart rates we're going to input here. And here's our array declaration. I'm going to change this to an array list. So how do I declare an array list? Array list of integer called heart. I'm going to keep it the same name, equals new. And again, I have to say new array list of integer parenthesis. And so that declares my array. So I've modified this. Now here's my loop. My first loop, I'm going through 5 times, and they enter their heart rate, and I store it in the array. I have to store it in the array list. So I can't use that square brackets for array list. I've got to use a dot set and set the ith. So rather than saying dot get, I'm going to set that. Where's my C? Yeah, dot set I there. Yes, but then rather than having this this, I have to include well, actually, I don't want to do dot set. I'm going to do dot add. Sorry, I want to do add each item to the array list like this. So each item I want to add to the array list, and to add it, then I put it in the parentheses. Okay. Now there's another loop here, but this is luckily a for each loop, and for each loops work the exact same way with arrays or array lists. So this one doesn't have to change at all. So again, I've just changed 2 lines, my array declaration, and then changed this to a dot add elements to my array. And then I can run this, should run the same way. Enter my age. It should work the same. Okay, so that's this one. Here's another one here. I'm going to do this one. It's roll dice here. I'm going to delete this code here. Okay. So I want to declare an array list hold integers. So there's my array list of integers called dice, new array list, parentheses. And I'm going to use a loop to add 10 random numbers to the array. So I have to just do a loop 10 times. This is an old school loop. So for int count equals 0, count less than 10, count plus plus. Okay, I'll loop 10 times, and I'm going to add. So here's my code here to add numbers to my array. This random I can keep outside my loop. So I declare, and then I generate a random number, and I'm going to add that to my dice. Dice.add the random number. So that'll add the number. Now I want to loop through and print out the values. I can actually cheat initially, and I don't have to even do a loop. I can do it through system.out.println and just print out the dice here. Oh, I have to do that inside my main. Sorry, it's in the wrong spot. There, okay. So I'm rolling 10 20-sided die. I don't know if you ever played with 20-sided die. I played lots of Dungeons and Dragons in my day, and so I love 20-sided dice. So here's my 20-sided dice here. Okay, so we loop through print out. Let's actually print them out rather than like this. Let's actually print them out on a separate line. So I'm gonna comment this out and actually do a loop to print them out. So I'm going to do a for each loop for each die in dice. And I'm just going to go system.out.println. The die value is, and then print out the die. Oops, I need an int here. Int die in dice. Okay, now it'll print out all my dice, each on its own line. That's this. Loop through the array and find the largest value and print out the largest value. So again, I think we've covered the largest value. So you should now, maybe we've done this 3 or 4 times. You can start remembering that. How did we do the largest? You should be able to recall that algorithm. So what do we do with largest? We initialize the largest so far to the first element in the array or array list. And then we loop through the rest. And each time we check if each value is greater than the largest so far. And if so, we set that equal to the largest so far. So again, I can do that. So I say int largest equals, and how do I get the first element in my dice array list? Dice.get 0. So that initializes there. Now I'm going to loop through each item for each die in dice. I'm going to loop through and I'm going to check if the die value is greater than the largest so far. And if so, I'm going to just set the largest so far equal to the die value. And again, I want to print that out. So I'm going to do a system.out println. The biggest dice die is, and print that out. So now I can test it out, run this. So here's my dice. I've rolled an 18, another 18. So the largest is 18. If I run this again, I got a 20 this time. The biggest die is 20. So it seems to be working well. Then my last thing to do is to move some of these loops into methods. So I've got a couple of methods here. So I've got this largest one. So I'm going to add that here. I'm just going to do a public static void display largest. Display largest. I'm just going to move this code into there. Copy, cut it out of there and put it in here. And up here, I'm just going to call display largest. So one thing I have to watch is that, do I need any parameters or do I need to return anything? So I'm printing things out. I don't need to return anything since I have my printout here. But it does need the dice. So I need to send the dice down to this method. And so I need a parameter. And so what is dice? It's an array list of integer all dice. So now that'll work. I can do the same thing here for the printing out the dice. So again, similar thing here, just do a public static void print dice. I'm going to need the dice. I know that already, so I'm just going to add the array list of integers. All dice there. And then I'm just going to copy this into that list. Into that. And I'm going to call it print dice and send the dice down there to get printed. I have one more loop here to initialize the dice. I'm going to do one more. I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to copy this whole thing. Okay, I'm going to call this init dice. It's going to take an array of dice. I'm going to do new code in it. here. So get rid of that code. So, and now I'm going to move this whole code down to there. And I'm up here, I'm just going to call init dice and pass the dice down there. Okay. Getting an error. What's it? Cannot find symbol. I'm going to spell these both the same way. That'll be happier then. Okay. So now I can run this and it should work the same way. Roll my dice, tell me the largest. So again, this is the kind of practice I think you should do. Work through these things, good exercise. So again, see if you want to just do something different. You can try these same ones on your own. See if you can replicate this. There's other ones here that are nice versions that you can try. So let's spend like maybe a half an hour or so working on these, and then we'll just spend a little bit of time looking at the assignment. So I'm just going to go over the basics of this assignment. It's kind of confusing, I think, when you start. So again, we're going to work on a program that creates these racing bar charts stuff. Here, if I run it, is what it looks like when it's working. You see how the bars change color and change ordering. You've probably seen graphics like this before. So again, that's what we want. And most of the program is done, but you have got to add some things to it. So again, you're going to grab this, either download the zip file and zip it or grab the GitHub. I'm just going to grab the GitHub, I guess, here. So I'm going to go to a project and do team git clone, post it in here, and change and set this up. Let's see, I've already done this, so I'm just going to I have to change this because I've already downloaded it once. I just want to download it again here. Okay, and then we're going to open up the project here. So here's bar chart racer. Now there are a couple files in here. There's a bar file that sets up how to draw a single bar. You don't have to edit that. There's a bar chart array list. This is kind of interesting. The data is out here in different text files. So we're looking at different company brands. That's a text file. There are other actually ones. If you want, you can actually switch this and do different files. You can actually put your own text file out here and create it. But again, we're not going to go over that. So it's just going to do the brands. And then this standard draw is, again, some drawing routines. Again, all that is done. We want to go into bar chart.java. That's what it says. Okay. Open bar chart.java file. You need to code two methods, the add method and the draw method here. So at the top here are three array lists: names, values, and colors. And we have to set up those three, get those going here. So we look at add. This adds a bar to our chart. We're given a color. We have to add this color to the colors array list. Where the name, we have to add that to the names array list. And then the value, let's see, the value, if the value is positive, we add it to the values array. If it's negative, we add 0 to the values array. So you have to do a little check. But again, this is basically one line here, and then an if-then statement to add the right value, check if the value is positive, and if so, add it to the list. Otherwise, add 0 to the list. So that's what you have to do there. And then the draw method, you have to do two things. Now, the draw method is really large. So you can ignore most of it. Up at the top, the number of bars set to 0. So that's why if we run it now, it doesn't do anything. Okay, so we want to set that to the number of elements in the names array list. Oops, there. So again, you can check you have access to the names array list. How do you get the number of values in there? You want to set the number of bars rather than 0 to that. And then down here, inside this if then, so assuming it's greater than 0, this X max is set to a negative infinity. You want to set the max to the largest of the values. So again, inside the if statement, you'll set X max here, set that to the largest of the values. And again, we've looked at this before. Remember how you have an array list of values here. Go through that, find the largest value there, and then set X max to that largest value. Here, actually, right here, you can set that equal to the largest value. So right here. So those are the two things, or the two methods you need to modify. If you modify those correctly, again, when you run it, it should display these changing bar graph sort of stuff. Okay. So that's your goal. Questions on this? All right. I don't think it's as hard as it might seem. You just have to, work with the array lists that are given. So, okay, let's stop this.